Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Looking for new repertoire but unsure where to start? Check out Piano Literature for Teaching and Performance by Jane McGraw, a studio essential for all pianists and piano teachers, now available as a searchable ebook. It's a beautifully curated guide to piano music from the Baroque through the contemporary eras, featuring not only beloved classics, but also works by underrepresented and women composers, plus inspiring pieces by today's living artists. Each selection includes composer biographies, musical characteristics, and teaching insights that make lesson planning easier and more meaningful. With graded levels from 1 through 10, there's something here for every student. Visit pianoinspires.com/publications to learn more. Bring new energy, diversity, and inspiration to your studio with piano literature for teaching and performance. Thanks for listening to the Piano Inspires podcast and enjoy the episode.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this podcast. My name is Sara Ernst, and I'm Director of Teacher Engagement for the Francis Clark Center. And I'm delighted today to be joined with Logan Skelton. Logan Skelton is a much sought-after pianist, teacher, and composer whose work has received international acclaim. He has performed and served on competition juries in the U.S. and across Europe. His recordings include works of the 20th century American music, and his compositions include art songs and arrangements for solo, piano, and for two pianos. His work has tremendous reach, as does the work of his students who have found success through numerous positions around the country. His former positions include at the Manhattan School of Music and the Missouri State University, and he currently serves at the University of Michigan as professor and director of doctoral studies in piano performance. It's a delight to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So let's start from the very beginning. Tell us about your start in music and your start in piano.
Okay, well, I grew up in a pretty small town in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi. And my mother played a little. And I had a cousin who was a piano teacher. Lorraine Power was her name. And my mother taught me a little bit. My brother, I have an older brother. He started piano lessons. And when he started playing and practicing, I would go listen. Mm-hmm. And my parents noticed. And so my mom taught me a little bit, and I took to it. So we started lessons with my cousin when I was about 6. Mm-hmm. My mom worked with me when I was 5. Mm-hmm. And I made pretty fast progress, but I had no idea why until I was asked to play a piece that my brother had not played. Mm. And my teacher realized I was playing by ear. Mm-hmm. And I remember very distinctly, she said, turn around. This was my cousin piano teacher. Mm-hmm. And I turned around on the bench. I thought I was in trouble, you know. And she said, what note is that? And I remember as soon as she played it, I could see in my mind which note it was, but I didn't know the name.
Oh, interesting.
So I turned around, I just played it. And she said, did it again, and I could play any of the notes. Mm-hmm. And she said, I think you have perfect pitch. And I don't know what that is, you know. So that went on for a while until I was in the latter part of my high school, and there was a local teacher, James Jolly was his name, and I just studied with him for a year before I went to college, and that's how I began.
Wow. So did you have I assume you had a piano in your home then?
Yes, a small spinet.
A spinet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what we had.
So what kind of music were you studying throughout those years with your
Just
cousin?
the standard little children's teaching pieces. I think it was John Thompson and John Schaum, piano methods. And then when I got farther along, she would give little individual pieces, but it was very minimal. she had a piano studio. She was a private piano teacher. And I heard some of the other students in recitals, we would have to kind of play things. And I would hear these people play, much more difficult music. And I thought it was amazing. I remember the first things that struck me was saber dance, and also Rhapsody in Blue of Gershwin. Those were the things that just knocked me out. I thought they were just amazing, and I wanted to play them. But I did not come from a musical family. My brother stopped lessons pretty soon after starting them, and I continued, but half-heartedly, until I was an adolescent.
Okay.
And then I got real interested. And I started playing guitar. I started listening to pop music. I started playing by ear the chord progressions. I started writing little pop songs and things like that. And I started writing little piano pieces. And it just became just fascinating to me. I don't know the word for it, but it was a lot more than just interesting. It became fascinating to me. But my exposure to classical music was very limited. And at that time, it was mostly, we would have albums like Chopin's Greatest Hits or some Gershwin, and we had Van Cliburn's Tchaikovsky Concerto, and Rubinstein, my favorite Chopin, and a few recordings. But I never heard too many concerts or went to festivals. I didn't know they existed, really.
Yeah.
There was one professor from Tulane University who came over and played a recital when I was about 12. I remember that. And her name was Sylvia Zaremba. She was a professor there in Tulane. And then I heard the duo piano team Ferrante and Teicher. They played. And
so you had some good exposure to music.
Very little.
Very little, but you took advantage of it.
Something. Yeah. But I would have eaten up the internet if I had had that, but that did not exist.
Isn't that an amazing thing to think about, right? The access that we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what was kind of next in your journey? Because it's interesting to hear you talk about that it wasn't, did you know that it was going to be your path at a certain point?
Well, I liked it better than anything else.
Okay.
And I decided that I wanted to try to major in music going to college. My parents were worried about the life of a musician.
Yeah.
And we didn't know anyone who was really a professional musician. So my mother wanted me to have a backup plan and go into accounting and music education.
Okay.
And so I sort of did that for 1 week when I went to college.
The music education or the accounting? Or both?
Music education.
Okay.
I put off accounting. I would have been a terrible accountant. But I went to Loyola University in New Orleans. And that's a real music school. And New Orleans has a quite good symphony, and they have some very good professors. And it was like The Wizard of Oz when it turns to color. And I had no idea. I didn't even know the names of most composers or pieces. I was so lacking in exposure to the larger world of music, but I took to it. And I started working very hard. I just didn't know such things existed.
Yeah.
And from there, I went, after a couple of years, I went to the Aspen Music Festival, and that was eye-opening. And then I went to Banff in Canada, That was after I graduated with my undergraduate degree. And then I went to Eastman School of Music for my master's and Manhattan School for my doctorate.
Wow.
And the teachers I had there, let's see, John Murphy was my teacher at Loyola University. And then I studied with Rebecca Pennies at Eastman. And I studied with Artur Balsam at Manhattan School. And I also studied on the side with Lillian Freundlich, who was a Peabody professor, but lived in Manhattan. And all of them taught me valuable things.
I'm thinking about Don Murphy, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, because, what that journey looked like, because it sounds like you were out very hungry, but you also maybe had a foundation that needed to be built.
Yes, he described me as a blank piece of paper.
Oh.
And he said it was actually easier to teach me than if I had had very established habits.
Yeah.
But I did not. And he was very smart and very clear in his mind about taking a score and sort of dividing it into how you play it. I'd never experienced anything like that. And I definitely took to it and started playing much more difficult repertoire. And when I was a sophomore, somehow I wound up playing Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto with the Gulf Coast Symphony. And that was a stretch, but I did it. And I had played Rhapsody in Blue with my high school. At my high school, that was the one time I'd played with orchestra. There was a community orchestra, Gulf Coast Symphony. And then, I don't know, I started playing chamber music quite a bit. There were wonderful faculty members at Loyola who took an interest in me. And there was a violin professor, Valerie Paulette, who asked me to play chamber music with her. I loved doing that. We played quite a number of things. I had a voice professor, Philip Frohnmeyer, who we would perform together all kinds of voice music. And when I started writing songs later in graduate school, he would sing the things. And he had no business, trying to take it so seriously, but he did. And it was so inspiring to work with him. Yeah. And I had a kind of special relationship with William Horn. He's a theory and composition professor. And he taught me really how to think like a musician, how to hear like a musician, how music was made, and how that affects what you're trying to do. And I took composition lessons from him. And
so did because you mentioned that early on you were making your own music.
A bit.
Yeah. And then that did continue through your work.
I stopped when I went to undergrad school because I realized that I had so much to learn as a pianist. And then there was an assignment in a class to write a piece. I remember this very distinctly. We had to write a small piece of music using some materials from, let's say, Impressionist music, certain harmonies or something. I don't remember the details of that, but we had to write a piece. And William Horn was the professor, and he took the scores of the students and he started playing through them and commenting on them, but he wouldn't say who had written them, just playing them for us and commenting. And wasn't playing mine. And he got to the end and he said, now this one is, I like this one. And he starts playing it. And there was, when I had written it, it was just a very simple ternary form, A, B, A. I remember, but I had written a theme for the A section, a theme for the B section. And somehow when I went to return to the A section, I realized that the B and the A theme could be combined. And I hadn't done that on purpose, but I realized that they worked together. And so he liked that.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
And he thought that showed some potential.
Uh-huh.
And so I started talking with him about music in every way and started playing some of his music. And we have never stopped talking about music. He is my lifelong mentor.
Wow.
And I always say to people, he's got to be the best teacher I've ever had. William Horn. He's still active as a composer. Wonderful person also.
So what else kind of happened along your journey that you feel like had a kind of impact on maybe where you've come today or helped kind of form who you are through your career?
Oh, well, one thing was also at Loyola. I can't fail to mention a writer and poet, John Bigonnet. John Bigonnet is a wonderful writer, author, spent his career in New Orleans. He lives now in Houston. But I was able to take an independent study with him in poetry. And I had my eyes opened. And I remember exactly when it was. And can I tell you?
Yeah.
We were reading the great poem Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen, British poet. And it's about World War I. And I had been going through poetry with John Bigonnet. Each week we would read, he would assign things, and we'd read and talk through them. And he was showing me all kinds of things about rhyme and meter and poetic forms and devices and the meaning of the poem. And I was going through it and I was interested in it. I liked it. I liked him a lot. But I secretly didn't know why I was doing that. I had no idea. Kind of bad attitude deep down, but I didn't tell him. And then that time we were reading that poem, and it's about World War I and these soldiers marching away from a battle. And they're tired and their boots are stuck in mud and they're exhausted. And suddenly there's gas, kind of projectile that they used poisonous gas in World War I. And it says, suddenly there was an ecstasy of fumbling. Where there's gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling. And then this green gas, which was chlorine gas, starts there. And they had gas masks. They're trying to put on their gas masks. And one person didn't make it. And they watched him perish right before their eyes. And it's painful and terrible to watch your friend and comrades in arms die, and there's nothing you can do. And he describes it in such a moving way. And John was asking me about the poem. And he was saying to talk about what I saw in it. I'd read it probably 100 times. And I described what I just described to you. And how sad it was in the story. And it was the narrative of the story that I was describing. And he said, that's true. That's all true. Did you notice the fact that this is a double sonnet? And I said, no. He said, count the number of lines. I said, that's 28. He said, that's right. That's a double sonnet. Sonnets are 14 lines. And he said, what about the meter? And I hadn't thought about it. It's iambic pentameter. And then I was telling him, I said, what difference does that make? It's such a moving poem. He said, hold on just a second. Read that last stanza and think of the meter and think of the rhyme. My friend, you would not say with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory. The old lie, dulce et decorum est, which is, it's right and proper for you to die for your country. You wouldn't tell young people that if you could see what I have seen. You would not say with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. The last line was cut short, like the lives of these young men. And he said, all the weight of that poem spills onto the silence. I have chills just now.
It's beautiful.
It moved me. And I felt suddenly what art was. And I remember reading later Emily Dickinson. She said, they asked her, how do you know if you're reading true poetry? And she said, my head is blown apart. That is what I felt. It's like my mind exploded in that moment. And I said, I had no idea that rhythm and meter and rhyme could mean so much. And he said, in a great poem, everything serves the meaning. And then he talked about what poetic language was. And he said, functional language is like, when are we supposed to meet for this podcast? 3:00. Let's meet by the elevators on Sunday, and I'll see you there by, okay, fine. And the second you transmit the information and you complete the act, it's like erasing the language. It doesn't remain in any way. But it was late in the day, and there was a window in his office, and he said, it's getting late. I could say, we'll meet next week this time at 5:00, see you Monday, and we'd erase the language. Or I could say, instead of it's getting late, I could say something about the purple jaws of the sky. And I saw this band of colorful clouds. And he said, what are you supposed to do with that phrase? And that was 40-something years ago. It's still in there. You can't erase poetic language. It lingers and rattles around your brain for years, decades, and works on you. I don't see sunsets the same. And everything about that experience made me love poetry as much as I love music.
So does that connect to your affinity towards art song?
Yes.
Okay.
Art song brings poetry to life. And when you have an insight like that into a poem, if I can ever reach that point where the meaning of the poem is revealed to me, then I often just start wanting to write music for it. And poetry, the language is so musical. When I was a doctoral student at Manhattan School of Music, I'll tell you, this is absolutely formative to me. I had no idea why I was doing this at the time, but I used to go to the New York Public Library at Lincoln Center, and they had a vast collection of LP recordings. And I would check out recordings of poets reading their own works. And I would listen to those things over and over and over and over again. And especially E.E. Cummings. I just was mesmerized by his reading. It was so musical. And I didn't even know what the poems were saying, but the music was so clear. And I kept reading and reading. I spent way too much time. And then one day, when I was already teaching in Missouri State, in Springfield, Missouri. I was sitting at the back of my house on this wonderful day. I started to understand the poems one after another. And another experience was listening to Schubert's songs, a recording of Alfred Brendel and Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, and following the poetry as the music was going by. And it was just transformative. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the way Schubert brought the poetry to life. It's just incredible, miraculous thing. And all of that eventually led to me writing songs. And then I realized why I was listening to poetry so much, why I was reading poetry so much, why I was playing piano, why I was studying composition. And I had this experience of playing my own songs with a wonderful singer. And I had written the music and the poetry I loved so much. And I was also using all my skills as a pianist, and as best I could, I was trying to write music that served the poetry. And I had this feeling like I don't want to be anywhere else in the entire world except right here, right now. And I just kept writing songs. I don't know.
I mean, that's beautiful. Forgive me for not knowing. What source material are you using for your art songs?
Well, different things. It's usually American poetry. So E.E. Cummings, I have a number of sets to his works. I call it American Circus. A couple of books of songs to his poetry. And then there's another set called Anyone, Someone, Everyone, No One. There are often kind of characters in his poetry, and other Cummings songs here and there. Emily Dickinson, one of my favorites. I have a set to the old Middle English poet Chaucer. I have a set to one of my own good friends, Marshall Clyburn. They're called Clyburn songs. He's Van Cliburn's first cousin, once removed, but he also writes poetry. And John Bigonnet, I eventually wrote a set to his. There are some Southern visual artists, Walter Anderson, painter, and from Mississippi, and George Orr, who's like the Salvador Dali of the ceramic world. Okay. So George Orr had a 2-foot-long mustache and he was very eccentric. But he was from my hometown, and he's considered one of the greatest ceramic artists of the 20th century. Strange. You know who was inspired by him is the architect Frank Gehry, and he designed the building for Orr. Orr had this unique way of making these twisting, strange, unique pots. And Gehry often has these twisted buildings. His design for the Orr Museum looks like the Orr pots.
So how does that play into your music? I missed the thread there.
I set all of them. They have writings.
Oh.
And I set all of these people, their writings, it made songs out of them. All of them.
Yeah.
And
well, you seem like you have a deeply kind of artistic journey, and it's not limited to music. It's fascinating to me.
I don't know why I am the way I am, but I'm not interested in everything that there is, but I'm interested in what I'm interested in so deeply. I want to know everything about it. I'll get every book written about something and just read and read and read and read and read and study and study and study and memorize poems and Robert Burns, another Scottish poet. But I have these moments when there'll be a moment in time when I will just the world of their poetry will open up to me. With Chaucer, for instance, why in the world would I set Middle English? I'll tell you why. My grandparents in Mississippi were I'm a 9th generation Mississippian. The family came over way back and settled in this isolated area of central Mississippi and never left. And my grandparents had a way of speaking that was not really a normal Southern accent. It was very unusual. And my father, who was an English teacher, we were talking with my grandfather, and he said something. And later my father said, "Did you hear what he said?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Miss McKee came down the road the other day, helped me out." Now, help me out was the past tense of help. And he said, that's Middle English for help, past tense. And my grandmother would when something smelled bad, she'd go, "Ooh, that smells like corn." Something that smells bad. And it turns out that that's Middle English word for carrion, the rotten meat, roadkill. And my father, when he was young and learning about grammar, became aware that his parents spoke differently and that he spoke differently. And he became a kind of grammar police. And he became embarrassed of his parents' way of talking. But when he learned more in graduate school, he learned that every last thing they said had a long and honorable history in the English language. And he grew to love their speech. My father was telling me this story. And then he started reciting the opening of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. "One that April with her shore is salt, the drucht of marriage hath pierced to the rote, and bathed every vine in switch liqueur, of which thereto engendered is the flour." I don't know if I'm anywhere near what's accurate, but it's something like that. And suddenly, with that connection, Chaucer became the most beautiful thing in the world to me. I started reading his poetry. I remember I was thinking about setting something, and the translation was saying something like, people who rise through ambition become giddy or dizzy with their ascent. And the original said climbing, cleaming, hath, not dizziness, tickleness. It tickles you. And I thought, that's so good. And everything, I learned to read Chaucer in Middle English. And my family history is largely Scottish. The Logan families were Scottish. Robert Burns. It became absolute. I just love Robert Burns. I have several books of songs to Robert Burns. I have about 200 songs. And I write piano music and I make arrangements of things. And but I don't know. Once I have a transformative experience of some kind in this personal connection with something, I just go into that world, and music flows from that immersion, something like that.
Do you find any similar journey in your own discovery of repertoire as a pianist?
Yes, I have great loves in the piano repertoire. It started off with, I guess, Chopin. And when I was a young guy, a teenager, it was my limited exposure, but we did have Rubinstein playing Chopin. He's not too bad.
Not too shabby, yeah.
And so I wanted to play everything that was on that recording. In school, at some point, I became so deeply interested in Bartók. And so I threw myself into that and wrote my dissertation on Second Piano Concerto and played a lot of Bartók's music and I used to find articles on Bartok. In my office at Michigan, I have an entire shelf with books on Bartok and articles on Bartok, and I corresponded with Peter Bartok, his second son, and it's been a big part of my life. The piece that really got me there was the music for strings, percussion, and celeste, the first movement. Yeah. Wasn't even piano music, but I thought I was hearing music from another planet. And it just was that thing that happens to me, and I want to know that. More. Yeah. And then Gershwin in recent years. But I have made arrangements of Mozart's music and Liszt's music.
What compels you forward? Like, how do you get that source material there? Is it just you become inspired by a melody, or?
It's usually a single piece where I can sense something very special, unique, and I feel something that I've never felt before in it. And I feel drawn to it. I want to be close to it. I want to immerse myself in it. It's almost like Moses in the burning bush or something like that, that it starts to illuminate and draw me, and it calls to me. I don't know, words fail me about those experiences, but it's something like that. The uniqueness of the music transforms me.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. I imagine it's very much not sitting down and saying, okay, today I'm going to write an arrangement and I'm going to look through this book and find something to arrange. It's very much not that.
No. Well, it starts with some sort of experience. There's a philosopher, Martin Buber, who talked about this sort of thing. And I think a lot of Cummings poetry talks about it too. I-thou experience, where the relationship between you and something that is not you becomes special. It could be a person, it could be walking in nature, it could be a piece of music, it could be a conversation, it could be a book, it could be anything really, but there's a kind of a uniqueness to the relationship that starts to become unusually alive. And I think something like that happens to me in the early stages. And then I read and find myself just swimming around in it. And through immersion, music tends to just flow from it.
So I'm curious then, if you ever have in your creative process, whatever that might be, in terms of learning new repertoire or writing something, do you ever find yourself in a block, like where you hit some sort of
yes,
something that impedes your forward momentum, or what to do next? Or
yes, sometimes it's just the busyness of life that requires attention and work.
Yeah,
and you will find that your mind is preoccupied. So you try to do what you need to do. You try to do what you need to do. And it can be just mundane domestic things. It can be work-related things. It can be problems, whatever. But it tends to drown out other things. You need a certain amount of space in life to immerse yourself. And I usually compose most intensively in the summers. And that's what Mahler did. He would sort of disappear and go off, and he was a functional conductor during the year. But I love teaching. I love my work. I get a lot from it. I like helping students. I like figuring out what they need. I try to help them in the profession. I learn a lot from them. I enjoy my time spent with them. I think it's an honorable life to be a teacher.
When did you begin teaching?
While I was an undergrad, I had one or two students after a few years. And then I took a year after my undergrad and taught piano, just kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to grad school. And then...
Was it something that you were kind of drawn to immediately?
Yeah, my family, they were not musicians, but they were teachers.
Okay.
There was a fair number of teachers. And so it seemed like something I could do. I just had it sort of just happened, when you do presentations for a class.
Mm-hmm.
I would get real interested in those and trying to present things very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just make materials that were more clear and than they needed to be really for the assignment. But I became interested in, can you make things that are just so clear
Mm-hmm.
that people wouldn't be struggling to understand, but they would just understand. It just goes in.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes work to get things distilled enough,
Mm-hmm.
But I think it came from that.
What do you find most challenging, maybe, or most even invigorating about your work with doctoral students at the doctoral level?
Well, they're smart. They're challenging. They each have different strengths and unique qualities as personalities. I'm drawn to very interesting doctoral students.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like the challenge of it. I learn a lot from them.
Mm-hmm.
And but you have to kind of assess a person's unique constellation of qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what they're naturally inclined toward doing and what they need to do that they're not so natural with. And you try to strengthen those things and capitalize on these
Mm-hmm.
things. And I try to keep in mind that piano playing and music making is an integrated activity. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a physical element to it. You have to make sure they're playing in a way that's reliable, that is solid, that is sensible and functional and healthy
Mm-hmm.
for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
There's an ear element. You have to help them to make it sound very good and listen carefully. Some people are so caught up in the expressive qualities of music that they're not really listening well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are less expressive. You work with that. And there's a kind of a cognitive understanding of form and counterpoint and harmony, bass lines, and as they relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try to get all of it to work together. And then you try to spark their interest.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get a student really interested and have enough skills in those different areas, then they are going to continue growing over time.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing I take very seriously, and it's hard to do, takes a lot of time, is to help them get a start in the profession. And if you can do that, you've really accomplished something, helped a young person get a good start in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
And I continue to stay in touch with them and advise them about projects and sometimes just making their way at their jobs, I benefited so very much from a few wonderful mentors that didn't just teach me skills, but helped me along the career path. And I try to do that for my students. And I find great meaning in that.
That's beautiful.
When I was a doctoral student, I used to have a recurring dream. And it was something like this, some version of this. I would be walking along a dark street, and it was scary. And somehow some shadowy figure came out from this side and started beating me with a piece of wood.
Oh, my. Yeah.
And another one from this side did the same thing with a big piece of wood. And I had a big piece of wood, and I was trying to fight them off, both of them, and they were equally strong. And we were fighting to the death, you know. It was some version of that. And once a car in the dream turned on the street I was on, and the headlights illuminated us, and I could see who it was. And they were both me. And I thought, I'm fighting myself. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And we were equally strong. And I had the realization as a doctoral student that I was trying to decide if I was a pianist or a composer or a teacher.
Those were the three.
Those were the three things I was trying to decide. What am I? And as I learned about Bartók's life, he was all three.
He was.
Chopin, all three. Liszt, all three. Why do I need to choose? And I felt it's a longer path, a longer road, but in fact, that's what I am. And so I thought, I'm going to go down that, and I stopped having that dream. It's a longer path, but it fits me.
That's beautiful. So I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
How does piano inspire you?
Well, I love pretty much everything about it. It's, for me, it's like an orchestra. It's like a voice. It's like chamber music. It has unbelievably good repertoire. You can create all sorts of combinations of things. You can give the fullness of a composition. You can also work with others and just have your role to play. But it just has so many possibilities as an instrument. It's just incredible what you can create with it, the worlds you can create with the sounds and the balance of parts. And I like working with pianists. I find them a very interesting group of characters. And I don't know, I like pretty much everything about it.
Well, Dr. Skelton, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
The Francis Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, Piano Inspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and Piano Inspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at pianoinspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.